1789, the United States Lighthouse Establishment, USLHT, was created and operated under the Department of the Treasury. All U.S. lighthouse ownership was transferred to the government, which became the General Lighthouse Authority. On July 1, 1939, the service merged with the United States Coast Guard, which took over the maintenance and operation of all U.S. lighthouses and lightships. Abbreviations: USLHS, U.S. Lighthouse Service, LHB, Lighthouse Board, LHD, Lighthouse District, USRCS, U.S. Revenue Cutter Service, USCG, U.S. Coast Guard, USN, U.S. Navy, USLHT. U.S. Lighthouse Tender, A-2-N. Aids to Navigation transferred to the LHS on 04 June 1919 and commissioned as USLHT Poinsettia, and assigned to the 7th LHD at Key West, destroyed by an explosion and fire on December 27, 1928. USLHT Poinciana was built to replace it. Transferred from the Navy to the Lighthouse Service on May 31, 1919. Commissioned as USLHT Cosmos, it was assigned the 8th LHD at New Orleans and used as an inland. Assigned to Atlantic City, New Jersey, it was designated WAGL 260 at the start of World War II. Redesignated WLR 72260 in 1965 when the Coast Guard overhauled its hull designation system. After WW1, it was acquired by the LHS on October 28, 1919, and rebuilt. Commissioned as USLHT Shrub in 1920, it served in the 2nd LHD out of Boston. On August 6, 1931, it ran aground on Black Rocks and sank in York Harbor, Maine. It was raised and repaired at Staten Island, New York, then restored to service in the 2nd LHD. At the start of World War II, USCG Shrub was designated WAGL 244, continuing to serve in New England, out of Bristol, Rhode Island. Oak Class: Oak and Hawthorne. Oak assigned to the 3rd Lighthouse District, and home-ported at Staten Island. Hawthorne served in the 3rd LHD and home-ported at New London, Connecticut. Speedwell Class: Acacia. After commissioning, USLHT Acacia was assigned to the 9th LHD at San Juan, Puerto Rico, replacing the USLHT Columbine. On 15 March 1942, it was sunk by shell fire from German submarine U-161 off Haiti. It was the only tender lost in World War II due to enemy action, fortunately with no loss of life. Ilex. Acquired from the U.S. Army in 1922, it was one of the first to be reconditioned in 1923 and commissioned in 1924, assigned to the 1st LHD and replacing USLHT Zinnia. It served out of Portland, Maine for its entire career. Lotus. Acquired in 1922 and renovated the following year, it was commissioned in 1924 as USLHT Lotus, replacing USLHT Mayflower in the 2nd LHD. It was home-ported in Boston until the start of World War II. Lupin. Like its sisters, it was transferred from the U.S. Army in 1922, rebuilt in 1926, and commissioned in 1927. It replaced the aging USLHT Medrano and was assigned to the 18th LHD, San Francisco, until the start of WWIL in January 1942. It was designated WAGL 230 and continued to serve out of San Francisco. Speedwell. First of the class to be rebuilt after acquisition from the Army in 1922, it was refurbished and commissioned in 1923, home-ported out of Baltimore prior to WW1. At the start of the war, it was moved to the 5th LHD at Portsmouth, Virginia. Built as a typical riverboat tender for the Ohio River in the 14th LHD, replacing USLHT Goldenrod, it served most of its career servicing the Ohio and Kanawha River. Home-ported out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Built as a river tender for service on the Upper Mississippi River, to replace USLHT Dandelion. This was the last stern-wheel tender built for the USLHS. After commissioning in 1927, it was assigned to the 13th LHD at Rock Island, Illinois, then reassigned to the 15th LHD until the start of World War II, then assigned to Keokuk, Iowa, in the 9th LHD working the Lower Mississippi River. Designed for service on the Lower Mississippi River, to replace Oleander. The last side wheel tender in service, It was home-ported out of Memphis, in the 15th LHD. It was one of the first federal vessels to demonstrate that a racially integrated crew could work together. Decommissioned in 1945. Althea class. Althea and Poinciana. Althea, built to replace the Water Lily Althea, was assigned to the 6th Lighthouse District at Fort Pierce, Florida. Poinciana was assigned to Key West, Florida. It was a replacement for the wrecked tender Poinciana. Violet. Lead ship of the class, it was built to replace the lighthouse tender Holly. It was assigned to the 5th Lighthouse District at Baltimore and serviced aids on the Chesapeake Bay. Mistletoe. Last of the class to be built, it served at Portsmouth, Virginia. Lilac. Was assigned to 4th LHD at Edgemoor, Delaware, working the Delaware River and Bay. Columbine. Assigned to San Francisco Bay in the 18th LHD after commissioning, designated WAGL 208, boy tender, at the start of World War II. Linden. Keel was laid in September 1930. This was the first tender in the United States to have diesel-electric drive. Commissioned as USLHT Linden, it assigned to Portsmouth, Virginia in the 5th LHD working the Chesapeake Bay. Wisteria. Last of the class built, it was a planned replacement for USLHT Woodbine, but was assigned to the 5th LHD in Baltimore. Acquired by the Lighthouse Service in 1931 and commissioned as USLHT Locust, used as a buoy boat in 1954, and replaced by USCGC Bayberry. Became USCGC Locust, CG 72013D, when the LHS merged into the Coast Guard in 1939. Built as a bay and sound tender and assigned to the 10th LHD at Buffalo, designated WAGL 258 in January 1942. From 1959 to 1964, USCGC Cherry was assigned to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. Myrtle was built as a bay and sound tender assigned to the 8th Lighthouse District in Galveston, Texas. Home-ported in the 3rd LHD, New York, and was used for aids to navigation in New York Bay and on Long Island Sound. Arbutus was first assigned to the 2nd Lighthouse District and served at Woods Hole, Massachusetts. After World War II, Arbutus was reassigned to Staten Island, New York. Built as a bay and sound tender. USLHT Dowie was assigned to the 11th LHD in Detroit, working the Detroit River and Lake St. Clair. Built as a coach twice tender specifically for duty in the Alaskan waters, primarily at Ketchikan, it equipped with a double bottom for extra fuel and water. Assigned to the 11th Lighthouse District, then Tamarack transferred to the 9th Coast Guard District, at Manitowoc, Wisconsin. Built as a bay and sound tender. Commissioned in 1935, it was assigned to the 17th LHD on the Columbia River. It served out of Vancouver, Washington. From 1949 to 1958, its home port was changed to Seattle. Jasmine class. Bluebonnet. Assigned to 8th LHD and operating out of Galveston, Texas. After being incorporated into the Coast Guard, and with the start of World War II, Bluebonnet was designated WAGL 257 in January 1942. Jasmine. Keel laid December 26, 1934, assigned to the 8th LHD. USLHT Jasmine was home-ported its entire career at New Orleans. Hollyhock class. Fur. Keel laid on January 7, 1939, but completed after the LHS merged into the Coast Guard in 1939. Thus, this was the last lighthouse tender built. It was commissioned in 1940 as USCGC Fur, WAGL 212, and assigned to duty tending aids in Puget Sound. It served its entire career operating out of Seattle, Washington. Hollyhock. Keel laid 13 April 1936, the lead ship of this class. It was built to replace the aging USLHT Shumack, and was assigned to duty in the 12th LHD. USCGC Hollyhock served in Detroit, Michigan from 1959 to 1962 and in Miami, Florida from 1962 until decommissioned in 1982. Walnut. Keel laid December 5, 1938, planned for the 11th LHD as a replacement for the old USLHT Marigold at Cleveland, servicing aids in Lake Huron and Lake Superior. In June 1941, it was reassigned to 10H1 in the territory of Hawaii. It was assigned to Miami, Florida from 1954 to 1967 and then San Pedro, California. Goldenrod-class river tenders with propellers mounted in tunnels for shallow water Mississippi and Missouri River operations. These were the prototypes for the later 114-foot Goldenrod. Assigned to duty tending 8s in the upper Missouri River, homeported at Kansas City, Missouri, designated WAGL 213 in January 1942. From 1950 to 1962, USCG Goldenrod operated out of Peoria, Illinois, then from Keokuk, Iowa, until 1973. Poplar. Assigned to duty out of St. Louis, MO, tending 8s on the lower Missouri and Illinois rivers. Its home port was changed to Sewickley, Pennsylvania, in 1963. Assigned to Atlantic City, New Jersey, it was designated WAGL 260 at the start of World War II. Redesignated WLR 72260 in 1965 when the Coast Guard overhauled its hull designation system. Zinnia class. Narcissus. Assigned to the 7th LHD at Key West, Florida for duty. Reassigned to Portsmouth, Virginia, for the rest of its career. Zinnia. Assigned to Edgemoor, Delaware, for A2N duty. It was reassigned to Gloucester City, New Jersey for the next 20 years. In 1967 it was reassigned to New York City for 2 years, then to New Orleans. Maple was assigned to the 10th LHD on the Great Lakes, replacing the old Sundew. Originally built for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as the River Tug LeClaire, it was acquired by the LHS on May 17, 1938 and converted for use as a river tender, commissioned as USLHT Cottonwood in 1939 and stationed at Chattanooga, TN. It was employed in the Tennessee River for tending aids to navigation.